Welcome to The Real Word, an innovative new show that talks about the everyday local and global issues from a woman's perspective. Hi, I'm Katie Morgan. Sitting to the left of me is Cree Quaker, Brooke Barnett, and Karen Gilliam. Hello, ladies.
Hi.
Thanks for joining me. Let's talk about coming out. Some people say that it's easier or harder depending on where you grew up. Cree, I know you're from Cali. Of course, you came out when you were, a year old. But how was that? Okay, five. But how was that experience for you? Do you think it was easier because of the diversity and the acceptance in California?
Well, at least for my family. My family's originally from the East Coast, and they moved to the West Coast, and I think that my family at least lost its religion a bit. And so we were really open about different things, and that really wasn't, it wasn't so much of an issue. It became an issue when I told my parents that I liked a girl, and as I asked a girl out. I think it's more individual specific. I think it's probably a lot easier in areas that are, less religious oriented, because we don't have that stigma. And my family was very open, easygoing and whatnot. So I think that's helpful, but I think it depends on, a lot of different factors.
I think it totally depends on a lot of different factors, because I am from Oregon, and that's where I came out, and there are a lot of very liberal-minded people in Oregon, but I grew up in the church. Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday evening, church camp for 8 years when I was a kid. And there was a lot of fear and apprehension on my own part. I started dating women in my early 20s, and I came out when I was 30. So there were a good 9 or 10 years where I kept it from my family, because my fear was, growing up with all these scriptures, that I was going to be condemned to hell.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, with the times my parents grew and their minds expanded, and when the time was right and I felt comfortable with who I was, 10 years later finally, they were loving and accepting. But I'm also really lucky. So I think it really is individual.
It is individual. I think that location can have a lot to do with it. I'm from North Carolina. My family was not extremely religious, but we went to church. We were good Southern Baptist folk. And I came out in a city in North Carolina. I was in college in Greensboro, North Carolina. And there's a huge gay population in Greensboro. But I'm from the mountains of North Carolina, where it's not quite so accepted. And my mom in the beginning was like, oh, you just decided you were gay because you were in a city, and you were in a place that was more accepting of gay people. I probably did come out because it was easier, in that city than, being in Hendersonville, North Carolina, where I was the only gay person I knew,
Well, the level of anonymity too.
Right.
When you're in a big city like New York or Los Angeles, you're a little bit more anonymous, or any big city. When you're in a small town and everybody knows your name, it's kind of scary.
Right. In a larger city, there are support groups, and there are places that you can go where there are other people like you, whereas you feel more alone, I think, and I think that's one of the problems with younger people that need to come out or whatever. They're kind of like, who do I know? What do I do? Where do I go?
Talk about affecting loved ones. My mother, it was very hard for her, but think about it. How long did it take you to come out? It took me 5-6 years to even come to terms with it. So, we expect our parents to be like, oh, hey, great, you're gay, let's throw you a gay coming out party. No, it's not like that. They have all these expectations for you, and you have to allow them to come out, kind of so to speak, as well.
Right, I think there's a patience and a compassion. I know for me and my personality type, it was so hard for me to come out, because I was always a really sensitive kid, and I was always consumed with pleasing my parents and making them happy. And I bet there's someone else out there in the same situation where they will sacrifice their own truth and happiness for other people. It happens every day. And what helped me, and if this could help anybody else, is that I realized I'm responsible for my own happiness. My mom had her shot at being happy, and she still does, and my dad had his choices to be happy, and I deserve that choice for myself.
Right.
And when that really sunk in, I was able to come to them and to say, this is who I am. It's not even a lifestyle, because that's like something you shop for. It's truly who I am, and then that relieved a lot of pressure.
Well, and your parents and your family members go through their own coming out, like you said. They have to go tell their friend, well, Brooke's not going to be marrying a man because she's gay. It's interesting to see, my mom from the time I came out, which was, like 8 years ago, to now, it's so much easier for her. She calls me the other day and she's like, so I told your uncle about your lifestyle. And, whereas, 6 years ago it was like, oh God, I don't know what I'm going to do. I have to tell,
But it was only because they were trading war wounds.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I love that. That's how I love it when it comes out. It's like, oh, well, my child is a drug addict.
Oh yeah.
My child is gay. It's like, what in the hell is that about? I told a couple people this. It's like my best friend, her mother wrote a letter to my mother and said, Lynn, it could be worse. She could be a prostitute or a drug dealer. And I'm like,
well, she is, but no.
yeah. But here's a question. When do you think your parents stop thinking, no husband? You know what I mean? Like, when does that really just because Karen, how do you feel about your parents? Do you think that light is still very dimly lit?
No, perhaps. They haven't shared that with me.
No.
They are very accepting. I think they worry about me, quite honestly, because they worry about my financial future. They want grandkids. And that's another thing. And I'm not there yet in my life. But that's another thing where I've had to be like, you guys had your shot at that. That's what I want too, and I'm not going to take that pressure on as well. I know that even though my parents presented a face of, we love you and this is great, whoever you are and whomever you love, we love them too. But my sister told me my mom secretly was grieving. She'd go in her bedroom and mourn the life that she thought she was going to have with me, and that included a wedding and a husband and maybe even grandkids. But I tell my parents that I could still have kids, and I don't think they quite realize that can happen, that there's that option. And a very good friend of mine and her partner just had a little baby last August. As you guys know, it happens all the time. Are they thrilled? I'm not sure. Are they accepting? Yes.
Well, and then what do you think that you could tell a young woman, a young man who's in a small town in Missouri, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Pennsylvania, and they don't have this support group and they're afraid they're going to lose all their friends, their parents aren't accepting? How do they come out? Where do they go? What do they do? I remember I was kind of like that. I didn't know anybody gay, so I just assumed I was asexual. I didn't really know what was going on.
We're older now, though, too, and there are lots of things on the internet. Even when I was, about 15 years ago, I, worked at the Gay and Lesbian Center in Los Angeles. We had a youth outreach program, we had a pen pal program, we had everything. I used to have young guys in gangs saying that, I've got a girlfriend, she's pregnant, and I killed people, I've done these things, and I'm gay, and I don't know how to get out of it. And what do you say? What do you do? They're afraid of their surroundings. And I think that at the core of it, you have to see what your relationship is with your family. For me, my family always expected, I don't think they ever expected a husband in my world. I think they just expected that I was going to do what I wanted. When I was 5 years old and switched from dresses to Toughskins, they blamed it on Sears.
Yeah, they expected a Harley.
They just knew that whatever she's going to do, whatever she's going to do, and we're going to go with it. So I think that really it's a dynamic you have with your family. And if you have any sense of fear, you may not want to come out full force. You might want to take things slowly and test some waters, because you can really be ostracized. I've had I have certain friends and family members who have people have suspected they were gay, and they may or may not be, I don't know, but they felt so tormented by just the fact that someone suspected they were gay that they don't really know what to do, and they really sort of internalize things and they start acting out, and you don't want to go down that road. So I think it's a tough thing. It's really individual. Your relationship. The internet's an incredible tool.
It's not that my mom didn't want to be accepting, or my dad. They were worried about their baby. They were afraid that they were going to get hurt. And you never want to see your child get made fun of or put down. But she almost made me feel like I can't tell anyone.
And it's, a lot of times friends and loved ones can project their own fears and hang-ups onto us. And I've found what's such a blessing when I've had the courage, especially when I was younger and just coming out, to reveal who I was authentically and share my truth. Then that person is like, well, I have this problem.
Yeah.
I never wanted to tell anyone. And it creates this beautiful, sacred space where people can be themselves. And with that, the energy just builds and we get more confidence and we become more of our authentic selves. And as now, almost being 40 years old and coming out about 10 years ago, I feel so much better about who I am. When I first thought I might like girls, and that actually, for me personally, everyone is different. That wasn't a good time to talk to my parents because I had guilt around it, I had shame, I had weird feelings, and then they would have picked up on that. When I felt better about who I was and I met more positive role models in my world and I was more involved in the community, I felt better. And then my parents, they were like, Karen's happy, she has friends. This is working for her.
She's
So,
okay.
Yeah,
It's about
seriously.
relationships.
Yeah.
So it goes back to, even within a tent, finding those relationships, and what if you came out to somebody and maybe they felt the same way but were terrified by what could have happened in their family and then spread negative things about you to, save themselves. So it's tough. I mean, you really have to, when you're a kid, how do you understand relationships? It's tough. I mean, God, I'm almost 40 years old and I don't understand people. So what do you tell them? So it's tough.
Yeah.
But I think you go back to the internet and you find different safe havens and start finding like people. You find your sense of peace and strength, and I think from that you can start building other relationships.
Because it's such a gamble, it's like you could go and tell your parents and they could be like, we kind of suspected that, or because that happens a lot. That's one thing that I found is I'll tell somebody and they'll be like, okay, it's not that much of a surprise. Like when I told my grandma, she was like, that doesn't surprise me, and it's, but then at the same time, you could tell, your parents and they're like, we never want to see you again, get out of the house.
Don't you think it's the ultimate litmus test? I mean, we weed out a lot of people in our lives that really aren't of good caliber or character. Because when you share something so personal, and if someone can't meet you in that place, then you're really not worth having in my life anyway.
Yeah.
And I also think coming to New York from Oregon as a young woman and making my way here and realizing I was different. I mean, everybody can relate to that in some form. Gay, straight, whoever we are, wherever we are, there's something different about us. And it accelerated my growth in such a way that it wouldn't have if I maybe wasn't gay or didn't have this difference. It really increased my maturity like tenfold.
And it really spills over in other parts of your life, whether it's relationships, your business. You have a certain kind of confidence that you may not have had. I mean, honestly, had I not been gay, I may not have had the courage to go and jump out and take off and, leave LA with nothing and come to New York and say, I'm going to be this because I can be whatever I want to be.
And you learn to have compassion for other people that are different. And I think that that's why living in this city and being gay is so amazing, because it teaches you that everybody's not the same. My neighbor is not the exact same or anything like I am, but it's okay.
Well, I think the most important thing is just to try to be your true, authentic self. Sometimes we can't come out because of work reasons, sometimes family reasons, whatever it is, but I think the end goal is just to be yourself and to be happy.
To be honest with yourself.
To be honest
Even
with
if you
yourself,
can't be
yeah.
with others for now, as long as you, can identify and be honest with yourself, because at least you have that, and you can find others that you can be honest with later.
If you or someone that you know needs a little support, definitely go to the internet to dosomething.org, and for teens, gayteens.org. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Woo!
Okay.
That's all right.